It all started with a text message. My husband, Jason, had just landed in Florida to care for his mother, who had recently undergone hip replacement surgery. She lived alone in a quiet retirement community near Tampa, and though she had friends who occasionally stopped by, she needed someone close during her recovery. Jason didn't even hesitate. The moment the doctor said she'd be laid up for a while, he packed his bag and booked a one-way ticket. I admired that about him, his loyalty, his compassion, but I also knew that his absence was going to feel longer than either of us expected. I was left behind in our house in suburban Texas, with the summer sun already rising high over the rooftops. Our pool glimmered like a jewel in the backyard, but it had been a while since I'd used it. I usually only swam when Jason was around. He'd coax me in, teasing me about how I tiptoed into the cold water like a cat avoiding a bath. But now, the backyard just felt quiet. Too quiet. By the third day of Jason's absence, I found myself craving the kind of distraction only the sun and water could offer. I grabbed a towel, slathered on some sunscreen, and slipped into my favorite black one-piece. It had been a gift from Jason last year on our anniversary, and it still hugged my body just right. I made my way to the pool, the concrete warm beneath my bare feet. The water was refreshing. I floated for a while, closing my eyes, pretending that everything was normal, that I wasn't lonely, that Jason wasn't hundreds of miles away, that I didn't feel so strangely off. That's when I heard a voice from over the fence. "Looks like the water feels good today." Startled, I opened my eyes and squinted toward the sound. It was Logan, our new neighbor. He and his wife had moved in about 6 months ago, but I hadn't talked to them much beyond the occasional wave across the yard. Logan was in his early 30s, maybe a few years younger than me and Jason. He had a boyish charm, the kind that made people trust him too quickly. His shaggy blonde hair always looked like he just got out of bed, and he had a permanent tan from working outside. I laughed, trying to play off my surprise. "It's perfect," I called back. He smiled. "Mind if I join? My pool's still being repaired." I hesitated for a moment. But what harm could there be? We were just neighbors. Friendly, familiar, harmless. "Sure," I said. "Come on over." Logan walked through the side gate a few minutes later, wearing board shorts and holding a towel. He looked comfortable, like he'd done this 100 times before. And maybe he had, just not with me. We chatted casually as we floated. It was innocent at first. He asked about Jason, and I told him about the situation with Jason's mom. He nodded empathetically. "I took care of my dad after his stroke," he said. "It's tough. Respect to your husband." I smiled, appreciating his sincerity. "Yeah, it's hard. But Jason's amazing." He didn't even think twice. The conversation shifted to lighter things: movies, travel, work. Logan was funny, easy to talk to. I hadn't realized how much I missed adult conversation. He complimented our backyard setup, said our pool was one of the nicest he'd seen in the neighborhood. "You keep everything so perfect," he said, his gaze lingering on me for a moment longer than it should have. I looked away, brushing it off. It was probably nothing. By the end of the afternoon, we were both sun-kissed and relaxed. He toweled off and thanked me before heading home, and I went inside to shower, still unsure how I felt. There was a flicker of something. Not guilt yet, but awareness. And that awareness made me uncomfortable. The next morning, I got a text. "Logan, thanks for yesterday. Let me know if you ever want company again." I stared at the message for a long time. It wasn't inappropriate, not technically, but the subtext felt obvious. I could ignore it, pretend it didn't happen. But part of me didn't want to. And that scared me more than anything. The following afternoon was even hotter. I sat by the pool again, reading, trying to shake the strange feeling lingering inside me. About half an hour in, I heard the gate creak. "Didn't think you'd mind if I dropped by," Logan said, holding up a 6-pack of lemonade. I should have said something. Should have reminded him this was my private space. But instead, I smiled. I could use a drink. We talked again, this time more freely. There was laughter, a playful splash war, and then a quiet moment where the air between us shifted. I saw the way he looked at me. Not like a neighbor. not like a friend. And I didn't stop him. When he moved closer, I didn't pull away. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest, a deafening drum of adrenaline and temptation. His hand brushed mine under the water, and I didn't retreat. In that split second, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. But then the world snapped back into place. I stepped out of the pool, my legs trembling slightly, and wrapped myself in my towel. "I think you should go," I whispered. Logan hesitated. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. It's not your fault. I let it happen. But it can't happen again." He nodded solemnly, gathering his things and slipping out the gate without another word. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the moment, how close I had come to crossing a line that would have changed everything. Jason didn't deserve that. He was a good man, a loyal husband, and right now he was giving all his energy to someone else who needed him. Meanwhile, I had let loneliness cloud my judgment. Over the next few days, I avoided the pool. I avoided the backyard entirely. Logan didn't text again. I was grateful, though a small part of me felt the ache of unfinished temptation. Jason called every evening. I never told him what happened. There was nothing physical, technically, and yet I knew I had betrayed him in my heart. I hated that truth. I hated how easily I'd let myself drift into something reckless, all because I felt alone. 2 weeks later, Jason came home. He looked exhausted but happy to be back. He wrapped me in a hug, kissed my forehead, and held me like he hadn't in years. "I missed you," he whispered. Tears stung my eyes. "I missed you too." We sat by the pool that night, watching the stars reflect on the water. Jason told me about his mother's recovery, the little victories she'd had, walking with a cane, laughing at old sitcoms, learning how to cook simple meals again. I listened, holding his hand tightly. And then I told him the truth. Not all of it, but enough. "I let myself get too close to someone," I said, voice trembling. "Nothing happened, but it could have. And that scares me." He didn't say anything at first, just stared at the water, silent. Then he spoke, softly. "Thank you for telling me." We didn't talk about it much after that. But something shifted. We started spending more time together, doing little things, watching movies, cooking, walking hand in hand at sunset. It felt like we were starting over, slowly, intentionally. Logan and his wife moved out a month later. I never found out why. Maybe they had their own issues. Maybe it was just coincidence. But part of me was relieved. That summer ended with more clarity than it started with. I realized how easy it is to drift when you're not anchored, how important it is to speak up when you're lonely, and how healing begins with honesty, even the uncomfortable kind. Jason and I still sit by the pool sometimes. We don't need many words, just the warmth of each other's presence.
And